Good evening. My name is Nick. I'm the Director of Kern County Animal Services. I'm going to talk to you just for a few minutes on what animal services for not only El Nino but disasters as a whole. I'm going to talk to you about a few things to make sure that your furry family friends are taken care of. And then I'm going to wrap it up and let you know how animal services does respond to disasters. I did want to bring up something that hopefully everybody's paying attention. We know the common theme for what all of the presenters have said. It's preparation. We've got to prepare. And I think that with El Nino, you know, I as an animal control officer, I responded to probably a half dozen various disasters in the mountain communities, you know, fires, icy conditions. The difference with El Nino is we know. We can prepare. I think that's a benefit, a silver lining, if you will. The other thing is there's a lot of people in this room and out in the lobby, but I'm sure there's more Fraser Park residents, mountain community residents that aren't here. Your neighbors, your family, your friends that aren't here. This is vital information, and I'm sure that most of us, I know that I would, if I had a piece of information that could save my neighbor's life, I might think about it, but I would give him that information. I'd pause, but I would give him that information. I mean, if you knew that some of this information could save someone's life, I'm sure you'd share that. So I think it's a great idea to be the carriers of this vital information and share it with some of your family, friends, and neighbors. That being said, what is Animal Services doing to help prepare for disasters and for El Nino? We have an emergency trailer, actually two emergency trailers that are stocked with supplies to care for animals for a period of time. We're updating those sheltering supplies, just making sure, double checking that we have what we need in order to provide shelter and care for animals in case of a disaster. We're also reviewing some of our vendor lists and overlooking some of our MOUs with some interested parties that can assist us in a disaster like Fort Tejon, and the Humane Society of the United States, the ASPCA, just making sure that our contacts are updated in case of a disaster that involves animals and we can get assistance if needed. That's sort of what we're doing to prepare. I want to touch on a few things that you can do to make sure that your animals are taken care of and protected in the case of a disaster. Have a to-go kit. You know, a lot of the advice that you've heard up here can apply whether it's your animals or yourself, but have a kit ready to go. Some things that your to-go kit should include: a pet first aid kit, about 3 to 7 days worth of canned or dried food for your animals, disposable garbage bags, food and water bowls. I don't know how many times we've responded to disasters and we have to go back to the shelter for water bowls. Extra collars, harnesses, 2 weeks supply of any medications for your pets. I'll touch on a story about medications for your pets here in a second. Bottled water would be a good idea for your animals. About 7 days worth of bottled water to have in your to-go kit. Copies of medical records, or actually records saved on a flash drive that you can get access to. Identification. I don't know if anybody's aware, and I know it's down the hill in Bakersfield, but Animal Services does free microchipping. No cost. Okay, there's no requirements. You don't need a license. You don't. It doesn't matter what it. Goats, chickens, pigs, horses, cows. I don't care what it is. We microchip them for free. It is a permanent form of identification. It's also important if your animal's already microchipped. Please make sure the information is accurate. I can't get your animal back to you if the phone number is no longer good, or the owner hasn't been transferred, or the address is old. Update your information. Do that tonight if you can. If you don't have a microchip for your animal, come into any one of the animal shelters, the county animal shelters in Bakersfield, Mojave, Lake Isabel, wherever you happen to be. Bring in your animal during operating hours. We'll microchip it, no questions asked, for free. You never know if your animal is going to be with you when you're evacuated. If it's a disaster and the animal is separated from you, that's why the identification is so important. We won't be able to find out who that animal belongs to unless there's some sort of identification. I'll touch on disaster preparedness for horses too. You know, a great idea for horses is also microchipping. Tattoos, permanent identifications for your animals, for your horses, a brand, a photograph marshal shows up and assumes that he lost her leg in the natural disaster, so that they know it was already missing a leg. Include records for your horses. Horses' age, sex, breed, color. Keep that information close by in a safe location in a waterproof bag if you can. Keep halters ready for your horses. How many of us own horses? Anybody? Okay, so I'm not talking to nobody. On your halters, it'd be a good idea to attach a luggage tag if you can, with horse's name, your name, email address, telephone number, emergency contacts. Um, Please, in a disaster, make sure your animals know how to be trailered, your horses. I can't tell you how many times we've responded to a disaster to try to evacuate a horse, and we find out at the last second the horse has never been in a trailer before. It's a good idea to make that preparation. If your horse or your cattle or your livestock is not familiar with being trailered, you are in an area that's susceptible to natural disasters. Make sure your animal is comfortable being trailered. And if it's not comfortable being trailered, tell me that before I try to trailer it. I wanted to touch on a few other things. You know, if you do have evacuation plans for your horses or for your animals, share them with your friends and neighbors. Like some of the folks up here were saying, you might not be at home, but your neighbors might be. It'd be a good idea for them to be aware that what animals that you have in your home. If you do have a plan and you share it with your neighbors, make sure your animal knows your neighbor. I won't be able to get up here to respond to a dog bite if there's a massive flood. And lastly, what does Animal Services do in emergencies or in natural disasters? We go sort of hand in hand with the Red Cross. Normally, Animal Services is notified when there's a human shelter set up. Why? Because we set up an animal shelter somewhere adjacent to or in or near the Red Cross shelter. If you're evacuated and you take your animal with you, we will be there to provide care, food, water, a cage, dry cage, and care for your animals in case you aren't able to. So that's always a consideration. Secondly, if you are separated from your animal, it might not only end up at a county shelter. It might end up at Shelter on the Hill. It might end up at the City of Bakersfield Animal Shelter. It may be at the Red Cross Evacuation Center. Those are all things to consider. But above all else, let's all remember to prepare. And like all the other folks up here, I will be